Hey everyone, welcome. So yeah, we're in for hopefully, I don't know if I'd call it fun, but a weekend together. I really, if you can make the time for the whole weekend, it's going to progress from today to tomorrow through tomorrow. So if you can do it, it's good. Then we can all journey. I always think of these things as like a boat, you know? We get on a boat together. We don't exactly know where that boat is going, but we have an idea. Okay, we want to go east or west, and then we go. So if you can stay flexible with me and open, uh, that's great. The most important thing is being open to the Dharma. And of course, that also means being open to your mind. So that's mostly what we're going to talk about, how to do that. So we'll start. Let me just fix this. We'll start with some preliminary chants, and then we'll go from there. Give an introduction. We'll go into exactly what we're going to do. Okay, that doesn't work. Does that work? Okay. I recognize some. Oh. I recognize some of you. I know some of you are new. Are any of you completely new to like the Dharma, or is everybody? Yeah. Okay. Good. Welcome. I have a big job, which is to not turn you off from the Dharma. But in a way, this is kind of also your job, you know? So hopefully we can explore together. Those of you who are practitioners already, kind of the same thing here applies. How do we keep an open mind? An open mind also means, like, of course, we bring all of our knowledge, but an open mind also means kind of like a little bit of a beginner's mind approach. Like we come with not too many preconceptions and we stay open. And, I'm pretty friendly most of the time. Sometimes I bite, but not hard. And I'm joking. So you can ask questions, especially those of you who are newer, ask questions because some of the material is going to be, I think, pretty relatable and like kind of in line with maybe some mindfulness things you've heard or other Buddhist teachings. And some is going to be a little bit deeper. So for me, I like to maybe start in one end of the pool, go to the other end, come back, go again, like that. Yeah. So yeah, feel free to ask questions, and we'll be doing a lot of practice together too. So if you want to move, if you're here in person and you want to move to sit on the floor for practice, you can do that. You can move between a chair and I don't mind. What else did I want to say? I forget. We'll see. Are you ready?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, so we'll start with taking refuge and generating bodhicitta, and we'll do 2 times in English and 2 times in Tibetan and one in English.
Perfect.
Angke chodang suki chunam la changshu bardo dakni kyapsu chi daki shinen kipe sonam ki rola penche sangke drupa chuk sangke chodang suki chunam la changshu bardo dakni kyapsu chi daki shinen kipe sonam ki Rola penche sangye drupachu. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. May my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. And we'll read the Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in English. I prostrate to the three noble rare sublime ones. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on massive vultures mountain in Rajagir together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also, at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and behold, those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristics, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of passion, no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There's no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as truth, since this is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata kate kate parakate parasamkate bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that one should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. And we'll go to the...
Oh, we can do the dispelling hindrances on 13.
Okay. Prayer to the lion face Dakini.
Just the top of 13.
Top up to 13. This one? Extensive dispelling of hindrances? Okay. I and all surrounding sentient beings take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dhamma, take refuge in the Sangha. We prostrate to the great Mother Prajnaparamitra, surrounded by her children, the assemblies of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. In dependence on my prostrations to all of you, may those words of truth be actualized. In the past, the Deva King Indra dispelled the evil Maras by reflecting on the profound meaning of the wisdom gone beyond and reciting the profound words in daily recitation. In that same way, I also reflect on the profound meaning of the great Mother Prajnaparamitra and recite the profound words of the daily recitation. In dependence on that, may all disease, spirit, possessions, and bad conditions and opposing forces which happen due to the past karma and immediate condition be dispelled. May they become non-existent. May they be pacified.
Yeah.
Short mandala.
Yeah.
We'll do this in Tibetan. Om Sahaji Pergi Chuk Shing Beto Tram Ri Rapling Shi Ni De Kin Pao De Sang Ching Do Me Te Ho Wa Ye
Draw.
Ro Kyo Nam Da Ching La Che Pa Chu Je Tsun La Ma Nam pa ke nam ye che pu he ka la ken se chu sen tre je tang sam pe do che se ma la Sapye Chiki Shapa Waptu So Idam Guru Rana Mandalakam Nayatayami.
Hey. 저기 뭐는 너는 사회 라면 잠와서 Thank you. There you go. Oh, maybe I should keep this to the end. Yeah, for the dedication. So, for some of you newer, uh, these are just some of the opening chants. It's like once we learn what they mean and once we have some connection to them, it's like preparing the ground, you know? It's like how do you say it? We went to the grocery store. We went to our favorite organic market that cost half of our paycheck, and we bring home all these delicious groceries and vegetables, and we wash them. You know, we cut them, we prepare them, we start to cook them, and it starts to prepare the meal of the Dharma. Here, Buddha Dharma is so interesting because it's how do you say it? It's not just information, but there's information. It's not just meditation, but there's meditation. It's not just things we can see, smell, taste, maybe not taste, but we can see, we can hear, etc. We can touch, but we can also do that. So something very vast. And so I think each of us, you know, whether we've studied a lot and practiced a lot, or we're newer, or more in between, we just have to come with our, how do you say it? Wherever we're at, we meet that. But I think what's interesting is, I think for me, I talk a lot about curiosity often. And I think part of curiosity, like I was starting to say before we were reciting the opening chants, is keeping an open mind. You know, in the traditional teachings, before we enter like a phase of listening to the Dharma, either live or reading, or maybe listening to a recording, they usually talk about this as sort of avoiding three kinds of ways of being. They say avoiding the three kinds of vessels. A vessel that is turned upside down, a vessel that has holes in it, or a vessel that has like dirt in it. So when you add water, it makes the vessel kind of dirty and full of mud. So this is one kind of classical way to think of how we want to poise our minds, how we want to poise ourselves to receive the Dharma, to listen to the Dharma, to practice it, right? But another way is just to think of this as like having an element of openness and curiosity. And this is what we call like how we prepare also along with chants and things like this and poising the mind through the Heart Sutra, etc., taking refuge. All of that, we could just spend the whole weekend just actually talking about what we just chanted, by the way. There's a lot to say there, you know? But I prepared some things that uh, we have other business to get to. So, so how to put it? So I think having an open mind. Yeah. So we have these three phases. We have the phase of learning. We have the phase of reflecting on the Dharma, like what we heard, what we read, or what we listened to. And then we have the phase of meditation. So I think these phases are really interesting because how we integrate them into our practice can be very personal, but there's also some structure and some advice from the lineage, from the classical Buddhist lineages on how to do that. But for the listening phase, what's most important, so listening to our Dharma talk here, we're going to be talking about how to work with the mind, how to work with for most of us, a mind we don't have control over. It sort of controls us most of the time, how to work with that from a Buddhist perspective. And so in the listening phase, we just have, like I said, we have to keep an open mind. And for me, this means like fostering a sense of curiosity, kind of a sense of I don't know mind. And we try to hear and we try as best we can to retain the information, right? That's what not being a leaky vessel is. We try to retain it. When we're open, we're also a vessel that's turned up and ready to receive, right? And when we've removed any debris or dirt or mud from the vessel, we also, it's, our motivation for receiving the teachings also isn't tainted with something that's going to cause us harm. That's really what that means. So meaning like someone might have a motivation of aggression where they want to go after the teaching, they want to go debate with their friend and, prove their friend wrong. So that's a wrong motivation, right? Or sometimes we have a motivation of greed. This is often one that goes a little bit unnoticed. Like we want to gather everything and kind of, how do you say it? Like a little bit of an attachment or clinging to gathering everything as knowledge in our minds so we can kind of be the best or know everything, right? So it has kind of some pride involved and some greed. But what we want to do, what I would say, like poising our minds to receive the Dharma so it actually can benefit us. That's what this is really talking about. Is, like I said, coming from a place of openness, curiosity, kind of I don't know mind, like that. But also a sense of compassion, a sense of like curiosity for how to work with our minds. So the motivation starts to become more serviceable, more, available to actually help us. And then, of course, in the Mahayana path, we would include bodhicitta within that motivation, right? Where we wish not only to help ourselves and to become more clear in our own minds, in our own experience, so we can not only gain control over our mind, but actually understand the nature of mind and experience that so we can experience more freedom, genuine freedom from a Buddhist perspective. So not only that, but we see all other sentient beings are also, not in control of their mind. Some more than others, right? But we can see we're all struggling. And so we see more this act of listening to the Dharma as a collective experience. That's what bodhicitta is, right? And so we see it as a collective experience and a collective responsibility that I can't do it right now because my mind is out of control. I need to work with my mind. I need to work with my emotions in a more skillful way. But I want to do that so I can benefit others, right? So that would be motivated by compassion. The very first one is just that we want to be more at peace, right? We want to be more free. We want to experience more ease. And then that upgrades into not only do we want to experience that, we want to see all beings experience that. We want to see the world experience that, right? So these are kind of the different kinds of motivations you can work with. And that's the listening phase, right? Then comes the reflection phase, which is quite vast. And, just a little bit of practice tips here. As I'm talking, probably some of you are already reflecting. That's okay. But we have to make sure that doesn't block the listening phase. You see what I'm saying? Because sometimes we reflect too early, we form judgments, and then it blocks. So it's not that we start as an open vessel and that's guaranteed. No, we can turn into one of these other ones, right? And then it blocks the benefit we're going to get. You know, I think when we think it through, sometimes in traditional classical Buddhist teachings, either coming from being translated from Indian languages or um, Tibetan, it can kind of seem like I'm. I think we need to be careful with language here because it can seem like it becomes very hyper focused on like myself or you as one of these vessels. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm the upturned vessel or I'm the dirty vessel. I need to, you know what I mean? It becomes very, it does the opposite of what Dharma is meant for, right? To free ourselves from this fixed and solid sense of self. So we don't want to use these teachings I'm describing to make more self, is what I'm saying. That could be part of our own uh, how do you say it, constrictions that need to be worked with and healed through certain practices to open up, our own sense of, shame or low self-worth and things like that. That isn't really talked about in traditional Dharma, but it's cultural now, where, a lot of people in the modern world, we struggle with this. So we have to talk about it too, because it can affect how much the Dharma benefits us. So maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's not really focused on that this weekend, but we can chat a little bit about that. So, anyways, based on understanding and connecting to our proper, I don't like this word so much, but worth. I can't think of another one right now. Like our basic nature, our worth. Based on connecting to that, then we can listen and then, how do you say it? Not allow something to harm the benefit we're going to get. That's what I was really trying to get at. When we really see we are capable of changing, we are capable of growing and finding more freedom, more space in our life, in our minds, in relation to thoughts, emotions, perceptions, self, etc. Then we start to build like a very righteous, correct kind of confidence, and then from there we can kind of properly listen, where we're open because we want to see ourselves more free. And of course, from a Mahayana perspective, we also want to see others more free. And then when we enter the reflection phase is fun. You know why? Because it includes our skepticism, right? So it's very interesting here. The listening phase is kind of, we try to reserve our judgment too quickly. There's nothing wrong with like judgment necessarily. It depends how it is. But if we do it too quickly, we kind of cut ourselves off from learning something. That's what more or less the teaching is pointing to here. But then in the reflection phase, it's open. It's like an open field. Actually, if we don't apply skepticism, we're not going to benefit from the reflection phase. And we can talk more how to do these things. But like a simple thing, like maybe in the breaks this weekend, you just reflect a little bit on one thing you connected to. It doesn't have to be everything, but something you connected to, and you think, is that how it is? Is that how I see it? How does this happen in my life? And what we do is we continue that openness and curiosity in both looking at the object of the Dharma, like what we're hearing, the Dharma we're hearing, and the subject of our mind and who we think we are and how we work on our life and how we work with our habit patterns. So the mirror goes both ways. So like very famously, this is often quoted from a sutra where the Buddha said, it's kind of a foolish person who just takes my teachings and believes in it. It's more of an intelligent person who treats it like you would checking for genuine gold, where you're going to rub it, you're going to burn it, you're going to wash it. And then, if it's real gold, you can remove the dross and encounter the real gold. If it's fake gold, you'll find out. So what he's pointing to is the process of reflection, that we need to take the teachings and do our work of checking it against. We're not judging the Dharma, actually. What we're trying to do is open up, how are things? How do things exist? How, how are my thoughts? Are they solid or are they not? All these kinds of things. And that takes time, obviously. And as you may guess, that takes quite a bit of learning and listening to the Dharma, right? So then after that, we have the third wisdom, we have the third phase, meditation. right? So, you know, you see how much it took to just get to the meditation. And I think for modern people, sometimes we can be nobody in this room though, right? Or here on Zoom. But as modern people, we can be very impatient. We just want to get it, right? We hear, oh, meditation helps with something, helps me to feel more relaxed. I want that. Actually, what we do with that is we limit our possibilities, in my opinion. It's not a bad thing. Like, we all need to be more relaxed. It helps in our life, right? If I come up here to guide this weekend and I'm not relaxed, it's going to be horrible. You know what I mean? Already, I drank too much coffee this morning, so you know, if I can't relax, it's not going to be good for you guys, for me either. So we need to be relaxed. But you see, if we only focus on that, we also limit our goal. We limit our aim. So the aim needs to be influenced by what we learn and reflect on. And then when we get to the meditation phase, we really go to work of trying to shift or transform our experience, right? And of course, I think I want to point this out. Some approaches traditionally is like you would go learn for a long time, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 years. Then you would reflect also while you're doing that, then maybe you'd meditate, right? But actually, when you read texts like from Lama Tsongkhapa, Kampopa, like, the great masters of the Tibetan lineage, what they recommend is something a little bit different. They recommend doing all three on the same topic. You can't all do it all at one time, but you generally like within a day, within a week, you're working with a certain topic, listening, basically learning, reflecting, and then putting it into practice. If you learned how to put it into practice, right, you meditate on it. And I like this way. It's sort of like we don't wait. We just right away, we put what we understood into practice. One time, for those of you who don't know, Lama Zopa Rinpoche is one of the founders of the FPMT, of which this center is one of the centers of the FPMT. And he unfortunately passed away recently, last year. Yeah. And anyways, in the many encounters where I probably wasted his time, I was sitting in front of him and I asked Rinpoche, what should how do you say, what practices should I focus on, when I was going into retreat? And he had already given me some things to work with specifically, but I kind of wanted to know a little bit more. And he said, basically, practice what you know, like practice what you understand. Meaning, practice what you've listened to or read or learned and reflected on, and bring that into the meditation. So I think that's kind of what we have to do. So that's my advice for the weekend. Whether you catch 5% of what I'm saying or 50%, apply what you know, right? And of course, I'll guide some meditation and make it, hopefully build a bridge, make it practical for you. But I think this advice I like, practice what you know, right? Because it brings immediacy. We're not waiting, right? But also, we're being intelligent, where we're not just skipping to the meditation too quickly, right? So you're going to see me this weekend is more focused on meditation practice, but we have to talk about some other things in order for that meditation to actually work, right? For it to be serviceable and go in the right direction, like aiming the sail of a ship or a boat, or the rudder. So yeah, that's what I was saying. Sometimes, because meditation is now a popular thing. Actually, I don't even know what meditation. I mean, I know what meditation means from a Buddhist perspective. I don't necessarily know what people are saying sometimes when they say they meditate. No offense to anybody. It's because the word meditation has kind of lost its meaning, right? Again, it's not like, I don't mean to be harsh. It's not like necessarily a bad thing. It depends. But now what happens is a lot of people meditate without a view, without an aim, without an idea of like what they're getting. So like I was saying, we hear some idea, I want to relax, and we want to get that. I guess that's a kind of an aim. But also it can limit it because we didn't access a path that can provide a more richer experience, that can actually point us to more of our potential. So I guess what I'm saying is, you know, meditation without a view or meditation without learning and reflection, it can't take us that far, right? It can't go that far. So it's really important we have to talk and open this up. Maybe some of you have a lot of learning and reflection. It's just, I don't know. So we have to talk. Sound good? Sound okay? Make sense so far? Resonates? Um, okay. I want to say a bit more about view and then because this text, so let me introduce the text and then I'll talk about view. Um, so just last minute, as I was joking with Bay, the spiritual program coordinator, kind of like Tibetan style, I'm like, hey, we're gonna do these texts. I just decided this morning at I couldn't sleep, so I was up at 4:30. So I just decided at I don't know, 8. Hey, let's do these texts. I mean, I'd been thinking about it throughout the week, but I just kind of pulled the trigger. And that's maybe a bad analogy. As they say, pulled the trigger, decided a few hours ago. So one of these texts is really beautiful. It's one of the 100,000 songs of Milarepa. So Milarepa, for those of you who don't know, is a great Tibetan saint. He's probably the most famous yogi of Tibet or Tibetan saint, and that's because his life story is quite interesting. He went from a murderer to being enlightened in the same life, which is quite a feat, you know. And his story is full of trials and how do you say it? Tribulations, but also like when you accomplish something, great accomplishments and he practiced wandering in the mountains of Tibet, which I don't know. Like I had a lot of fantasy for that kind of thing in my early 20s. And then I think going to like mountains just in California, that fantasy died pretty quickly. I mean, it's a different breed of human being to be able to do that. Anyways, so there's how Milarepa often taught was through what we call dohas. So a doha is it's like a song of realization. It's not just any song. It's like once yogini or yogi has realization, genuine realization, they're going to express that through songs that they can sing as teachings, right, to students or passerbyers. And some dohas are really interesting because they happen in weird places or they happen in very kind of odd circumstances, right? They're not so much like, here we have heat and a microphone and Zoom and all that. No, I mean, a doha, I don't have dohas, but a doha could happen in that, from the proper person. Um, but these Milarepa and these great what we call a Mahasiddha, they often, their dohas would be very spontaneous and to me maybe like someone herding sheep, right, who was ripe for the teaching. So it's very beautiful. So this particular one so there's a collection of Milarepa's songs called the 100,000 Songs of Milarepa. You can get it as translated into English, and there's many more as well. And this comes from that collection. And this is called Milarepa's Song to the Girl Paldarbum. And it's basically on meditation. So that's why I chose it, and it's very short. So we'll talk about this. And then in order to give us a little bit of context and view, and maybe again, a word I don't like to use, but I'll say it, technique. Then we have this other text, which is very well-known and famous text in the Gelug tradition, coming from the first Panchen Lama Choki Gyaltsen, Losang Choki Gyaltsen, and it's the Mahamudra root text of the precious Ganden oral tradition. So, yeah, we'll go into this later a little bit. And my intention is not to teach this whole text because it's quite rich and, to go in depth takes some time. So we don't have time to go into the whole text. But what I thought is we can use some of the verses on meditation, on shamatha and vipassana, or meditative awareness and insight meditation, to go a little bit deeper. Yeah. But this is a wonderful text. And also, if you like this text, there's also some wonderful books that can start you off. There's a book from Lama Yeshe, who is the other founder of the FPMT. I think it's just called Mahamudra, and it's wonderful and very pithy and relatable. And then if you want a more in-depth one, a lama named Chodron Rinpoche, who I received teachings from this text on. He who used to come a lot to the Bay Area, and I believe he came here. He passed away some years ago. There's a very extensive book on this text from him. I think it's called Mastering Meditation. So you can check that out too. But really, Mahamudra, it's not really meant to be received from a book. We're going to talk about that a little bit too, right? It's not meant to be received like that. Though it's okay to start, but eventually you need a teacher. Okay. So view. So we have, as I already talked, learning, reflection, meditation. Another system or another thing we use within Buddha Dharma is a system we call view meditation conduct or view meditation fruition sometimes, right? And I like this way of working because it makes it kind of approachable for us and relatable, and also brings some conviction on why view is so important, or why meditation needs to be informed by a view. I also want to clarify quickly, view doesn't mean belief necessarily, right? It can, but it kind of means something we're trying, something we're testing, right? Something we're taking, okay, this sounds interesting. I'm curious about this. Let's go a little bit deeper, right? So view doesn't have to necessarily mean we're a card-carrying Buddhist, right? View doesn't necessarily have to mean I don't know, that the moment we believe everything's correct. No, because we need to use the Dharma to transform. And that, as I said, with learning, reflection, and meditation, that takes some work. That also takes some, how do you say it, challenges. So things like doubt, things like not being confident, things like wanting to, quit but we love the Dharma so much we show up again the next day. Anyways, those are normal for a lot of us. So I state that right off the bat because sometimes we can get discouraged because these things are talking about something very high, like a very high view, these texts. And how do you say it? Even we're going to talk about Buddha nature in a second. Even that is quite a big topic. It's something very lofty to some of us. And so we have to also recognize where we are is totally fine. And what we need to do is just to continue to show up, right? So view doesn't mean we have to be a believer. I think view means we are going a certain direction because it makes the most sense right now. And at the same time, we're gaining confidence in that. We're growing, we're maturing, and most importantly, we show up every day. Even if it's 5 minutes, both to study and practice, right? So many days. So when I was a monk, I got to do some retreat. Many days I just showed up. I didn't really want to be there. I thought I'm never going to get this. I'll read like Milarepa's biography and just feel bad for myself. Like I'm not a murderer and I can't even sit for, more than an hour or whatever I was judging myself with. So all these things, like I said, these can be worked out separately. If we have too much self-judgment, too much kind of low confidence, all of that, they're cultural sometimes. But what's most important, whatever we're going through, whoever we are, whoever we think we are, the most important is to continually show up, even if it's for 5 minutes, 10 minutes to our Dharma practice, study, etc. So that's what I want to say mainly. When we're engaging with view, there's a commitment to where we're aiming, but there's also a commitment to pulling something apart, to working with something, for trying to develop our understanding and practice. Yeah, that makes sense. I think this is kind of, for me, if I don't do this approach, I just go into a lot of judgment about myself and of others too, and the magic doesn't happen. To me, the magic of the Dharma, it's not so much in belief. This is a little bit controversial, what I'm saying. It's not so much in belief. I think it's really in this kind of, how do you say it? There's some sort of spark, like, wow, look at that. That's really different than how the world is working. That's really different than what I've been doing so far in relation to my life, my emotions, when I struggle, when I'm happy, all of it. That's interesting. But I don't understand 90% of that. So we take the 10% and we continue. We show up, we persevere. That 10% turns into 12, then 14, then 15, etc. Right? So this is really important. And I think inspiration, has to come from this place of, like I said, curiosity and openness. Of course, love and warmth is included in there for ourselves and others. And but this sense of like, I don't know, because a lot of the Dharma, it's so, well, Buddha Dharma, put it that way, because Dharma can mean a lot of things. Buddha Dharma, it's like looking into the sky, you know? Nothing formed yet for us necessarily. Like a little bit, we might have a little object here or something hazy or a cloud's coming, but a lot of it is just, how do you say it? Ideas, you know? But aspiring to know those, aspiring to bring those into our practice, aspiring to transform in deeper ways, like Milarepa or other, great beings that inspire us. This is important. So part of that openness and curiosity, and like I said, showing up every day, a lot of that is aspiration. Aspiration is really, really important. And so view can mean a lot of different things. We actually have a view meditation and conduct for like each vehicle in Buddhism can have a view meditation and conduct. Actually, like each, sometimes different practices can. But anyways, I'm going to use it more in a general way here. So what all of this is pointing at is actually the view we call the view of Tathagata. So Tathagata is a Sanskrit word that refers to what we usually translate as Buddha nature, right? And I find like if we don't start or remind ourselves of this often, sometimes the Dharma can go in weird ways, like we're trying to become something or change something, or how do you say it? Become enlightened. We say this all the time, like even the chants say this. So it's not wrong to say that. I want to point that out. But if we really have the idea we're going to become enlightened, this is problematic from a Mahayana perspective. I know that is also a little controversial. So the Heart Sutra we just read, it says it right there. That's why it's really important to read these things. Even if we don't understand it, we read it every day. Or we read it at the beginning of a teaching like we did. It says it right there. There's no enlightenment, but there's also no non-enlightenment. It's saying it. So these kinds of things might break our brain a little bit, but it's important to persevere. But Buddha nature is something I think very interesting that we can connect with and we need to reflect on before we meditate. We need to reflect on before we learn more deeply and reflect more deeply on the Dharma. And Buddha nature, there's many ways to put it. Even though this way a little bit, I think, needs to be commented on, basically we can sum it up into you are perfect as you are. That's one way to sum up what Buddha nature is, right? But this word perfect is kind of a tricky one in English, right? And I, the reason this phrase is a little scary for me is I just see somebody putting that on a T-shirt or their bumper sticker, and it's just a nice Californiaism. You know what I mean? Like it's a nice, like, you are perfect as you are. But wait, why don't I feel that way? Like someone will say, oh, great, I'm perfect as I am. Great, yeah. And then the next day they're like, hating their life, or they're struggling with a difficult emotion, or they're trying to wiggle out of something that they're experiencing. So sometimes when we say things like this, you're perfect as you are, it also offers an opportunity to see the opposite, which is, wait, but I don't feel I am, right? So this is the predicament of Buddha nature. Now, the word perfect here, to make it more interesting and a little bit more aligned with the Buddha Dharma, is the word perfect means actually, how do you say it? Like beyond perfect. It means because there's no perfect, we're perfect. Does that make sense? Right? Another way to talk about Buddha nature, by the way, Buddha nature is more difficult to talk about than emptiness, just so you know. So I'm not going to pretend to talk about it here, just a little bit of some things. And then you all can go research it and, you know, try to connect with the teachings on Buddha nature through a real teacher. But anyways, Buddha nature, besides we're talking about you're perfect as you are because there is no perfect, because you were never not perfect, essentially is what it's saying. So what this is implying that at our essence, the essence of our mind is a Buddha. The essence of our mind has the potential for awakening and is clean and clear, right? So we can go a little bit to the word Buddha, right, in Sanskrit, and the word Sangye in Tibetan. Usually people translate Buddha as awakened or awakening, and yeah, awakened. And the Tibetan word has a little bit, it's a little more clarity sometimes. So sang and ge, they're actually like two parts of the word. So sang refers to some kind of cleansing or purifying or cleaning, right? Clarifying. And ge refers to blossoming or expansion. So basically, sangye means someone who has purified or cleared away all confusion and suffering. I started saying it this way, which I don't know if it's quite correct, but I started thinking of it this way. It's like they've resolved suffering, you know, all confusion that comes with that. So that's the sung part. And the gay part is because they've done that, there's so much clarity and there's so much connection. There's so much of recognition of, how do you say it? It's like the heart is totally open. So there's this blossoming or expansion of compassion. We might call it like unconditional love, but in Buddhism, we call it boundless compassion, boundless love. And actually, what we say in the Mahayana is more, this is referred to as resultant bodhicitta. So, anyways, so going back to Buddha nature, we are Sangye, actually. We just don't know it. And when we, unfortunately, are kind of looking the other way, right? So this is part of the Buddha nature teachings as well. And there's many analogies. Sometimes in order to understand Buddha nature, the best is to reflect on some of these analogies. Some of the traditional ones are, well, I don't know if this is an Indian one, but this is a Tibetan one that I like. And they say it's sort of like a poor man or a poor person who they they've inhabited the same house their whole life, and they've always been poor, not realizing that underneath their fireplace or underneath the ground of their house is a treasure. So that's one example. Like somebody who really thinks they're a poor person. For me, I'm the worst. I can never have enough money. I can never get it. I try lots of things and I fail and I lose it or whatever, or people steal it from me. Yet, underneath their house is more than enough, right? So that's one example. Another example is like the clouds in the sky. Actually, Milarepa brings this up in his song. So the clouds in the sky. So like today we're in Campbell, right? Yeah, we're in Campbell, California. And it's kind of cloudy because it's a storm and it's been raining. Now, I don't know. You can see how easily we forget as human beings. Is there a sun? You see, even when I ask the question, it's really interesting. We all know conceptually and intellectually, of course, there's a sun, but we haven't seen it for 2 days, or I don't know. I flew in yesterday. Was it cloudy on Thursday? So when's the last time you saw the sun? Anybody? Okay, 3 days or something. Did you forget the sun? No, but I mean like not conceptually, right? It's kind of something we have to go a little bit deeper to our habit patterns here. So I know it's something to think about. So, for me, I'm just here and I don't know. I'm not thinking about sun until I bring it up. And then I remember, oh, sun, right? Sun is possible. I can see it. I can feel its warmth. I'm looking forward to that. So this is a lot like Buddha nature. So when we study Buddha nature, when we actually just even reflect on it right now and bring it into why we would even want to meditate from a Buddhist perspective, we remember, sun, right? Or, Buddha nature. This is my essence. It's possible to be free. And not only is it possible to be free, this is my essence. This is my nature. Everything else is like mud or dirt covering over this treasure that is innately, I don't know, we can't really say who I am or what I am, but something like that. You know what I mean? We get into philosophical trouble. We say who I am or what I am. But anyways, words are tricky. So I like this example. So the clouds obscure that, right? The clouds obscure not only seeing our Buddha nature, but also even remembering it, or even being able to recognize it's possible. And what are the clouds? Our thoughts, our challenging emotion. Actually, from a Buddhist perspective, both emotions we don't like that we struggle with, and emotions we like, they're both included, actually. Perception, this body tells us a lot of things. I mean, this body is all we have, and it's our vessel. It's a wonderful vessel for the Dharma, actually. But also it confuses us. I mean, just if you study kind of I don't study it that much, but I remember reading an article about how our brain interprets visual perception. And apparently we don't see a full picture. We see in slats, kind of like this, how do you say it? Window, what do you call that? Blinds. I just couldn't think of the word. Window blinds. It's in slats. So apparently, I don't know if this is still modern understanding. Maybe someone correct me if I'm wrong. But I read something like this. I don't know what kind of science, but whoever studies that, maybe it's cognitive science. So anyways, so apparently, like, we see in slats and our brain fills in the rest. That's pretty trippy, no? So things like that. Smell, all of our five sense perceptions. And then, of course, mind. Why would mind be telling us anything having to do with reality if we can't even see reality? You see what I'm saying? So these kinds of questions are actually important, because we can then investigate our experience to see, well, what is the truth? And from the Buddha nature perspective, we can start to gain a little bit of confidence that we're capable of seeing the truth, because Buddha nature is beyond all of that kind of confusion. But what I'm getting at is, like, the body also creates some kind of confusion, right? Just having a human body, we have some confusion. Luckily, we have mind. So Buddha nature is it's not the human body. Buddha nature is the mind at its essence. So anyways, I'll kind of leave it here for Buddha nature, but it's something really we need to reflect more. Some other examples. They say, like a pristine Buddha statue hidden beneath a dirty cloth, something like that. Yeah, I'm blanking, but there's a lot of examples in different sutras on this, and they're very good to reflect on. Sometimes when we feel like, it's too much information, it's too much intellectual thing, why won't this guy stop talking? It's really good to just have an analogy or a metaphor, and we use that for reflection, because we don't have to think so much. It becomes like the sun and the clouds. Milarepa uses metaphors here in his song, so sometimes we can benefit from that. Okay, it's 11. So you get where I'm going? This makes a big difference in how we meditate based on that, right? I saw even some of you kind of have a little aha, no? Right? It's different. It's like, if we meditate knowing, actually, our nature is already awake, or our nature has the possibility to be awake, it's much different than meditating to be awake. You see what I'm saying? It's a big difference. So in a sense, we're not trying to become anything. We're actually trying to remove what's in the way of seeing that treasure, or seeing the sun, or, removing the cloth to see the Buddha, right? You see what I'm saying? So reflect on this a little bit. Maybe we'll take like a short 5-minute break, and then so use the breaks like this. I mean, of course, we need to use the bathroom and eat a cookie. But reflection is very nice, because you can do it anywhere. Nobody knows you're doing it. You're just like a little bit in your mind, playing with it. It's like play. Okay, we'll come back in like 10 minutes.